Today I'm going to be working on my 150 tail dragger, Cowl gills. I'm going to tell you what issues I've been having with the 150 and how I think this is probably going to help. So with my 150, I have an 0320 in here. This has been converted from the 0200, 100 horse, to the 150 horse. And actually I'm 160 horse because I have high compression pistons. The problem with this particular conversion, this is the Del Air conversion, it has quite small cowling inlets, air cooling inlets on both sides. They're rather small. They, in my opinion, they could have probably stood to be another inch, 2 inches total open right here to really get more air through there. Also, the engine is very tightly cowled so that it could fit within the shape of a 150, which is going to be a little smaller than a 172, which is what you're going to find this engine in. So the issue that I have is I have some elevated CHT temps. They aren't dangerously elevated. On a summer day in a climb, I can see 410 on number 3 cylinder here. Now I know 410 isn't the end of the world. I know I could probably run that continuously if I wanted to. I just like to see my cylinders under 400. For me, a nice sweet spot on a hard climb, 390 would be great. And then you level out in cruise if you could get down to like 315, 320, which is about where the other 3 cylinders settle out in a cruise. Number 3, still even in a cruise, runs a little warm at about 370. So my purpose here is to try to get some more air from the high pressure side of the cowling down to the low pressure side and out, exit the aircraft. Now I've already done a few things in years past. I added this lip extension that helps create more of a lower pressure zone right here and essentially create more of a vacuum to pull the air from the unpressured side of the cowling down and out the aircraft. That did help. I think I got maybe about a 5-degree drop. It's kind of hard to say, but it seems on average about a 5-degree drop. I also added a baffle. You can't see it inside here, but right down the center of the engine, I basically created a baffle that separates the right side of the engine from the left side. And the reason for that was I do have my oil cooler on the left side. And my thought was, well, air could come in here and it's going to find the least restrictive path, right? Well, I have an air cooler where the air can go and exit from the high pressure side up here out on the left side. So I put a baffle down the center. Only the air that comes in on the right side can pass through the right side cylinders and down. The left side, same thing. I can't get any mix or crossover. And I found that actually helped and gave me a few degrees as well. But I'd really like to see about 10 to 12, ideally 10 to 12 degrees would be great. I mean, 15 would be excellent. If I could get it down another 15 degrees. And enter the Cowl gills. These are FAA PMA'd from a Cessna 206. Certain models of the 206 do have these gills. And they place them right about here. And what that does, it's just more surface area in the unpressurized side of the cowling to let the air exhaust out. And if you're not, I keep saying pressurized and unpressurized. Well, if you're not familiar, this is what's called a pressure cowl or a pressure cooling system, where the ram air is coming in to the inlet. It's going over the cylinders and being directed down through the cylinders. They end up stopping this because of this baffle here. They can't go any further past the engine, and they're forced to make their way through the cylinders, and that air cools the cylinders. It's high pressure here, and as it comes past the cylinders down to the underside area here, this is now an unpressurized side. So it's going to be lower pressure, ideally, than up inside this area. So high pressure area in through the cylinders, and then it kind of gets into a low pressure zone, and then it needs to exit this area, and that's with that opening there. The goal being, the more you can get the low pressure side cowling to exhaust the hot air, the better chance you have of possibly bringing in more cooling air, more air through the high pressure side, and then getting it out as quickly as possible on the low pressure side. If that makes any sense, I hope it does. So next step here is to get this installed. I've preliminarily kind of marked the corners where I believe it should be. I kind of stood back and I looked at it and it looked about right. And next thing I'm going to do is lay out all of the holes for the rivets that will go in the perimeter of this piece. Because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it on the inside of the cowling at the right location. I'm gonna match drill through this piece, through the cowling. And then I'm just gonna rivet it up and go take it for a flight and see if I actually get some improvement. I have heard from fellas that run this on their 150s with the 150/160 horse engines. Some of them are even running 180 horse, that this can actually create up to a 15-degree drop. So if I can get that, that will be awesome. I wanna try it. So next step, let's get this thing laid out. And then I'm gonna have to cut this, and that's gonna be a scary proposition, but it'll be okay. Well, what I've done, I saved you the boring part of me actually marking all this out. I've marked my lines where I want the rivets to go on the top and the bottom, and then I've marked all of the in-betweens. Now, when I looked at pictures of a 206 that have these, and they run one rivet in line with each of these vertical solid pieces here, and then one in between. So for that, I started using my rivet spacer, but then I found that these weren't equidistant because this gill is slightly larger than this one, is slightly larger than this one, and so on. So I actually didn't end up using that. I just marked these where the verticals are and then halved that distance for each in between. Did it on the tops and bottoms. Where I was able to use the rivet spacer is on the ends. So I just lined up the 2 holes in the end. I knew I wanted 3 on this end in between, 2 on this end, and the rivet spacer is great for that because you can get equidistant holes that are nicely in line. So this has all been marked out. I'll go ahead and drill all these holes. Then what I'll do, I have the other one over here. Once I get the holes drilled, I'll just clamp these 2 together, and then I'll match drill through that one so that I have the exact same holes for the left side gill. Now with this gill, this is the right side gill. With this drilled, I can take it and overlay it onto this one, and I can match drill through this and get the same holes. There we go. That one is now perfectly match drilled the same as the right one. And as with anything with aluminum fabrication with aircraft, got to deburr all the holes. So I'll go through here with my deburring tool and get all those done. I like to use, this is ram board tape, and it's for taping down protective cardboard in like construction sites. We use this in my robotics business when we're going into a site. It's got a finished floor. We don't want to mess anything up. What's great about this tape, it's like a paper masking tape, but it's got a really good sticky bond. Like it really sticks, but it doesn't leave any residue behind. It'll just come right off. So it really holds things in place, and you don't have to worry about peeling off any paint or leaving any goo behind. I use this for all sorts of stuff, ram board. Anyhow, got this gill on here. I'll go ahead and match drill. Now remember, this is the left one on the right side. That's just so it can be flat, so I could tape it down. Couldn't do that with the right one there. Number 40 holes here. Drill those. I'll drill in Cleco as I go. Draw my lines, put my little radius down there at the bottom. Draw my line there. Hopefully this shows up. And then come up here. Draw that one. And this one. Now if these show up, if not I'll have to use a fine tip marker, but if these show up, I'll pull this off. That should be my 4 corners, and I'll just connect the lines. You got them right there, there, there and there. So I'll get my ruler out and I'll just connect all those lines, and then I'll be ready to cut out that interior hole. So the trick here to cutting this while doing minimal damage to the paint is I'm going to tape over this area. I should be able to see, I'm going to use the ram board tape. I should be able to see the black lines through the tape, and if I can really see them, that's fine. I'll just leave it as it is. If I can see them but not quite well enough, I'll just trace over them so I have a good reference line when I'm making my cut. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole at the corner, each corner down here, one up here, and I'll do one up here. Now this radius is actually quite a bit larger than 1/4, but that's fine. I'll work that out when I make the cut, and then I'm going to finish file it. I'm going to cut slightly to the inside and file the rest. This is a little nerve-wracking because I really don't want to damage this paint. I don't want it flaking and chipping off, but if it happens, it happens. This paint on this plane, surprisingly, it was done in 1991, and I got to tell you, it looks like it was painted 6 years ago. It's been kept in really good condition, so I would hate to do anything to it. I think I'll be able to do this without doing any damage. Anyways, I'll get this tape laid over it, and let's see if I can make out those lines now. Perfect. There we go. That is my cut. That will, when this piece sits here, leave an opening right at these lines right here, so we will only see the gills. Got my drill here. I'm going to use this little piece of MDF as a backer block, and I'm going to go for it. This is kind of the point of no return here, but I got to get this done, so let's just go for it here. All right, tool of choice I think I'm going to at least try and start with here is my air saw with a fine tooth metal cutting blade. And I'll just come in here and I'll just favor to the inside of the line and make my way around. Hopefully with this tape on here, it should protect everything. Sometimes the air saw can kind of bang around on it. I'll see how it starts to go. If I don't like it, I might change things up and use a metal cutting wheel, but I want to try this first. Well, now it's definitely too late, but it's all good. I think the cut is a really good cut. I need to come in here now, clean it up. I'll get the file out, might get my angle grinder wheel in here and really get some of these lines. I'll finish out these corners real nice. But I believe the tape has protected the paint, and we should have nice clean lines under there. All right, I've got a basic filing and a sanding done enough to where I'll go ahead and take the paper off, the tape. And I'll do a finish filing with this off now. I guess this will be a good chance just to do a preliminary fit up here. And where are my holes? Right, basically like so. Oh, that's gonna look great. I think I'll be really pleased with this. I just gotta do a little cleanup. I still don't have nice, perfect lines yet. I've got this, I'd say 99% done. There may be a couple little areas I might hit just a little bit more, but that is beautiful. I'm gonna cleco this in place from the inside and let's see what it looks like. Look at that. I am very happy with that. This little gap here will suck in when we drill and cleco and rivet these holes. Same thing on the underside here. There's a little bit of a gap, and then all the way down. All those rivets will draw that piece tight to it. One thing I didn't mention is these come with these little pieces here, and I believe those are stiffeners that go along the bottom edge. And they do two things. They stiffen up the cowling, since there's a big hole cut out in it here. And they also act to kind of, the air that's coming down here from the pressure side, they act to kind of maybe grab a little bit of that air and redirect it and force it out the gills. So anyhow, next step here is match drill all those holes, the inside, match drill and cleco as I go. And then I'll match drill this piece on the inside there that I just showed, and then I can rivet. And for this I'm going to use just some number 3 soft rivets. I don't know what size yet. I've got the whole kit. I got pretty much every rivet you could ever want in my tray, which, hey, while we're talking about that, I'm always happy to show my hardware tray. Let me kick the lights on it here. This, if you're going to do airplane maintenance, why did my lights go on? There we go. You really need this. That's AN3 through AN5, -3 up to -30 or so, depending on the size of bolt. And then plain nuts, lock nuts, castle nuts, thin and thick washers, you name it. That's a must-have. But for today's, well, and here, we've got cotter pins. I've got these nuts, different types of pull rivets that I've been using on my Rans project, but what I'm interested in today is these -3s. Probably gonna be these guys here, or maybe these guys here. It's either like -4s or -5s. I'll have to check and see, but I've got all those, and I will have to use my rivet gun because I can't really get a squeezer in there, but that's easy. That's a real easy thing to get in there and buck. So let's get her match drilled. That's how it looks, all clecoed in place. So what I'll do now is this support here. I'll go ahead and drill one hole at the top there and get that in place, and then I'll take all these clecos out. I'll slide it over and I'll work my way down. I'll drill cleco until I get all of those in place right there. This is curved, it's got a curve to it, and this is straight. I may need to, well, I probably will need to get my fluting pliers out and just flute this ever so slightly to get that curve in there and get it all to line up. fact, I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and flute it a little bit now. Boy, it's not much. Boy, you know, actually, as I look at it, that's actually at that point, that's a straight line. I won't need to, look at that. I won't need to flute it. Okay, good. Well, you know, this is why you look at these things a little closer before you do something. Cool, well, that'll make it easier. All right, I'll get this piece put on here. Got that first hole drilled, got it clecoed in place. I've taken all the other clecos out. And what I'll do is I'll just slide it over until I get it right where I want it, lined up. And then I'll just come in here, and I might just do this one in the middle first, cleco it, hold it in place, and then work my way in between. So that's been match drilled. That thing is ready to go. I think the next step is just a little bit of final cleanup, deburring, and riveting. But you know what I think I might do? I'm wondering if I should leave this a natural, kind of the iodine. It's kind of it's not a greenish iodine like you might see. It's got a little green to it. More of a silver, I guess. Anyways, it's kind of a natural silver finish. Do I leave that? Or do I paint them white? Now's the time before I assemble it. The problem is I don't have the exact match, or maybe I do. Let me see what I have for paint. I might have the paint from when I painted the doors, when I did my patroller doors. I might have about a pint left. If I do, I think the best thing would be for me to spray these before I rivet together. If I don't, I think the white that I do have won't quite match, and I think that might actually look worse than just leaving it silver. So let's see what I've got for paint. Yeah, I found it. This is back from when I did the doors. It's polar white. It's a polar white base, and then it's a custom mix, and these codes here are whatever they added to get it to the right color. So, and I've actually got, I got half a quart there. So, that being the case, I will spray both of these with that, let that all cure up overnight, and then I'll come out here tomorrow and I'll get it riveted up. All right, I got my mix all set up here, and I got these parts laid out. I'm just gonna give them a light little tack or mist coat right now. Just using my touch-up gun for this, HVLP. Good, and then I'll come back and hit that with a little bit of a heavier bodied coat. Turn my air pressure down for these parts here. They want to fly away on me. Yeah. Let me, I'm gonna have to use two hands here, but yeah, here we go. Hopefully that's still a good match. That paint's about 8 years old. I'm surprised it was still good in the can. Well, at least I think it is. I painted this little piece of scrap here. It's just a test panel to hold it up to other areas of the plane and see if the mix I have right now is still good for any touch-ups I might need to do. So I'm just gonna let that cure, and I will come back in the morning and I'm gonna get that guy riveted on. I'm debating on just doing the right side for now, go and take a test flight. If I like what I see, maybe do the left side as well, or just do them both. I don't know yet. But anyways, that's it for right now. Well, here's these parts after curing. It's the next morning now. And I'm happy to report that the color, even after that paint being, I had that paint for 8 years stored away there. And this is the part I cut out. And that's the little test panel I made. And you can see here, it matches. So it didn't yellow with age or anything, which I'm glad for. So I've kind of got this temporarily clecoed in place. I've looks like a AN, what do you call it? A AN 373 3-4 is what I'll need for these, and then where the doubler goes, I'll probably do one dash size larger. But I'm ready to go ahead and rivet this in place. So I'm gonna cleco this up just a little bit more, and I'll start riveting. For riveting, I've got my, I'm just gonna use a 2X gun here and my little tungsten bar. These little guys are great, especially for these smaller rivets. I've got this one, it's like 1 pound. This thing is, for as small as it is, it's incredibly heavy. And I've got a smaller, kind of like a rectangular bar one, but for this one, I think I'll use this one here. And let me get to riveting this in place. Turned out nice. Paint, again, perfect match. Of course, the rivets, you know, those aren't painted. I'm considering using my modeler's little airbrush, mixing up a little batch of paint, and then making a little template, a little piece of paper with a perfectly sized punched hole that fits over the rivet, and just go over each one with my modeler's airbrush and just, I think I can do each one perfectly, but that's something that I can do. That's something for another day for now. And if I even want to, like, it looks fine. So anyways, one side done, and still haven't decided if I'm gonna do the other side yet. Maybe I'll do it. I probably just should. I've got everything here and the cowling is off. I should just do it. Oh, you might have noticed, while I had the paint out, I went ahead and painted this, and in the process, I noticed I've got a couple rivets that have broken. So I need to fix these as well. Well, as you can see, I did decide to go ahead and do the left side. You know, I had the cowling off, I had the tools out. It just didn't make sense to spend the time to do it. It had taken me twice as long if I was to do it later. So there we go. Cowl gills are in, and they look great. Really happy with how that turned out. I was a little nervous, you know, cutting into that. I wasn't sure what the paint was gonna do. I didn't want the paint flaking off. But with a little care, no issues at all. So awesome. Well, next is test fly this thing and see if it works. Hopefully it does. Hopefully it certainly won't hurt. And hey, if nothing else, if I don't get any real noticeable improvements, I guess they kind of look cool. So there's that. All right then, I may report back after a test flight.